Okay, let's talk about the tech implosion, the upcoming tech implosion. Because this is the last day, I want to kind of wrap everything up. I want to wrap all the ideas up. This 31st day is going to be the wrap up. And I kind of want to address why I really, what about augmented reality is so attractive? Why do I like it so much? Why do I believe that it is going to be the future? And I call this concept the tech implosion. I wrote an article about that, about this a couple of years ago. And this is what I want to wrap up, really to answer this question. So if we look at the different forms of technology that we have nowadays, right? The different forms of computers, the way that we interface with our technologies, we have, let's say we're looking at smartphones, smartwatches, laptops, tablets, desktops. All of these devices, they're made for specific purposes, but they all have something that all ties them all together, and that's the screen. And I would say that the difference between them is not fundamental differences. The differences between them is how we use them in that, pretty much the interface, right? The way that we interface with them, the way that we interact with them, the way we receive information. So a lot of them change based on where we position the screen. And a lot of them change based on the size of the screen. So if I change the size of the screen, obviously the bigger the screen, the further away it has to go, which means now I'm interfacing with it differently. So the way that I interface with the TV that has a massive screen that's far away is not by touch screen because it's not within arm's reach, right? The way I interface with a phone is it's designed to be holding inside my hands, therefore it's a certain size to be able to fit in my hand. There's a certain input, there's a way of dealing with it. But fundamentally, especially as chips get more and more powerful, and there's an argument to be said about, just looking at the Apple line of chips, and what they're doing with this M1, where, prime example, they've put the M1 chip in an iPad, which has fundamentally been a tablet, the same chip that they're putting in their lower end laptops, and even the Mac Mini, like a more desktop type of computer. Now, a lot of people see that as them merging those two devices, those two interfaces, those two devices together, systems. I'm not really sure the best term to use at this point. But, so they're arguing to say, okay, they're essentially the same thing because they're both as powerful, so just merge them together and make them into one product. And there's an argument from the other side of, no, they're both fundamentally different because the interfaces, the way you interface with them is different. But why is it different? Right? Why are these computers fundamentally different? Why do you work with one with your fingers and why do you work with one with a keyboard and mouse? And that's usually the style you use them, the way you use them. A keyboard and mouse needs something to rest on. They don't work well on the lap. So if you're going to work on something sitting on a bed or lying back or on a bus, there's only certain places that something that sits on your lap, like one thing that sits on your lap is comfortable, that a keyboard and a mouse would not be comfortable. But okay, so we can go into a lot of these differences and the way that we interact with them differently. But if we just take the common denominator between them, that's the screen. So this is kind of the way I see it, right? This is the implosion. Imagine if all your devices, all the different ways that you interface, right? Think about that phone that's in your pocket. Maybe you have an Apple Watch. Maybe you have an iPad. And I'm talking about Apple devices, but yes, this applies to everything else. Think about that desktop. A lot of us have that question of what should I get? Oh, they're so similar, they overlap and things like that. Now imagine them all kind of imploding, coming together and just smashing together, and now we've got a crazy amount of parts. First of all, let's take the screens and kind of put them into one screen. What's one screen that can dominate all those screens, right? So we're taking a 4-inch screen, we're taking a 6-inch screen, we're taking a 13-inch screen, we're taking a 17, 20, 24, 100, whatever screen sizes you are. And we need one screen that rules them all. One screen that rules them all is your entire field of view, right? So if we can have a screen that can cater to your entire field of view, we essentially solve for all screens. This is one of the reasons that I did not like the Apple Watch in the first case, right when it first came out. Because the way I saw it was, if augmented reality, right, if a pair of glasses or if a pair of contact lenses, if there is that one ultimate screen that will dominate all other screens, that will render all other screen sizes useless, why are we making more screen sizes? Why are we making small screen sizes? Now, once the Apple Watch started moving more into the medical field, right, into the medical area, becoming more about sensors and helping to get data about my body and things like that, I started becoming a fan. And I think where the Apple Watch will go in a few years is incredibly exciting. But that was the time that it shifted for me. Before then, when it was the screen, I did not really care for it at all. Okay, so now we've taken all those different screens. We've made one ultimate screen, one screen that takes over all of them, one screen that fits our entire field of view. We don't need anything else. Now, all the other parts become, now we have to think about how we can interface with it, right? So if it's sitting on our head and we don't need to move towards the screen, we now have all different screens, then the differences of interfacing with it really become, it all becomes a bit moot because we now have to design for all in one. Because I can now sit back and have something that looks like it's 100 inches, and also the concept of square screens also goes away, because now that I'm catering for all screen sizes, I'm really catering for infinite screen sizes, which really means that the concept of screen sizes really goes away. And this is where you get to real augmented reality, the power of augmented reality, where we don't have screen sizes anymore. We're not trying to fit it into certain squares that fit in certain places, whether it fits onto our lap or whether it fits into our hand or whether it fits onto a desk. It no longer fits there because it is sitting in front of our eyes at all times, which means we interface with it, whether we are walking down the street, whether we are lying in bed, whether we are sitting at a desk, or whether we are in a rowboat in the middle of a lake. We're interfacing it in the same way. Now, this is going to be a huge responsibility of how to do it properly, but this is how the interface works. So now think of all the inputs, right? Think about keyboards, mouse, touchscreen, pens, dials, remotes, all those different things. A lot of those will be designed out. They will become very natural and they will settle on different parts of our body, the best parts of our body. So the screen settles on our eyes, right? The sound settles close to our ears. The way we input with our mouth settles close to our mouth, and the way we input with our hands settles close to our hands, so on and so forth, right? Those become the input devices. The output devices, the way that we interface with the device, and the input, the way that we receive that information comes primarily through our five senses. So we are both receiving and interfacing with devices that sit on our body on the most natural part, and those are where those are what is called wearables today. So you're seeing the very, very early parts of wearables, and I'm helping show you where wearables will go in the future and what they will become. They're not just going to be like a smartwatch, they will become part and parcel of how you control the world. Now, there were lots more ideas that I wanted to get to, and I will not get to them because this is the end of the 31 days. But I do want to leave you maybe on one very quick thing that I call layer OS, and there was another idea that was called the 3 layers. But this layered system is going to be part and parcel of how the operating system of the future works, how reality works. When I explain augmented reality to people and I talk about it as being the digital layer of the world, it's actually going to be multiple layers. Now, multiple layers will be how you interface with it. This operating system, how it's going to be divided up into different layers, and they're kind of going to be like the layers of an onion, or really think about the layers. I don't know if you remember back in the school where we had these light boxes, and you would put like a paper and you would shine it through, but you could also put another paper, and you could build up items, you could build up objects, you can build things up through the different layers. That's kind of how I believe the interface of the future should work, right? In terms of, I don't believe in applications, I believe in different layers, and I believe in different base layers. Now, I am speaking very, very generally because I am already at 9 minutes, but I want to leave you with that, right? That concept I call the layer OS. If you would like to know more, you can get in touch with me and you can see on the work that I'm doing on that. The concept of 3 layers is taking this concept, but it's also using this concept of how do I want to interface and how do I know that I want to interface and how do I give those layers to you and how do I partition them, not just stacking on top of each other, but how do I use the world and knowing how I understand the world. That's how I show myself this information. Anyways, I can't go into it more than that, but I'm telling you guys that I will see you in the future.